So guys, this is going to be a first draft of the video for this subject because I want to invite discussion on it, and I want it to be a respectful discussion. I want it to be constructive. I want you guys to share your experiences and kind of know where you guys are coming from, what you found that has worked, what hasn't, things like that. And part of this is coming back to I've been on this theme of this week of showing your authentic self. How do you write a profile? And utilizing the different tools that are out there, whether it's on Meat Fighters or some other site, Recon or whatever. And how do we present ourselves in the best possible way in order to get what we want? And I think that some people might feel attacked by some of the things that I say on this. So I want to really, really make clear that this is really about helping you guys and making sure that you guys are benefiting from that. Be respectful in your comments, but I do want to hear your guys' feedback because I think it's going to be a very important thing to go back and revisit. And so this is like coming out of a few conversations that I've had over the last couple days, talking with members in the community who have shared some of their struggles, and there are common themes. And so I've been doing this since 2003, so it's about 20 years. So I've picked up a few things, and I wouldn't say that I am the most successful person out there. I definitely have areas that I can improve upon, and I also don't think that I've been particularly unsuccessful either. I think I've had a lot of really, really good matches. And one of the comments that did come up was complaining about I think the review system on Meat Fighters, which is something that I really, really support. But I can see how once you kind of get a bad review, especially if it's early on, that's going to be a hard thing for you to break away from and kind of rebuild your reputation in a good way. And so I really want to kind of think about the journey of, first reaching out to somebody to when you actually finish playing with them and everybody goes home and they feel good about the experience. And thinking of that as one whole thing rather than different parts that are not related to each other, because I think that is actually quite critical when it comes to being able to be successful with meeting up with people. So I have a very intense outline on this one because it's really a complicated subject. So one of the first things that I wanted to talk about was that one of the first things that you learn when you go into therapy, and I've been in therapy for several years now, is that your therapist will tell you that you can't change others. All you can do is change your perception or change your behaviors. You're the one that kind of has to move whenever there is an issue. And, I think that for a lot of people, they believe that it is the world that has to change in order to accommodate them, and it's just not going to happen that way. So you need to be open to the idea that there is potentially something that you're doing that's not necessarily wrong, that there's something wrong with you as a person, or that you are unworthy or anything like that. And that is absolutely not the message that I want to be putting out there, because I think that everybody has a type that is going to recognize their worth. And I think that there are areas that we can all improve upon that make that more likely. But I think that you are going to be valuable to somebody. So don't think that there is necessarily a problem with you, especially one that invalidates you as a person, because that's not going to be the case. So I think that one of the first things, and maybe I put this a little bit early in this discussion, but it is being selective of who you contact. And so here's the thing about that. When you reach out to people, and this is kind of one of the early things, is that if somebody has taken the time to fill out their profile, to say something, then you should take the time to read it. And this is more of a problem on sites like Grindr or things like that, because people don't expect people to actually say anything meaningful or to explain what they're looking for. But I think for a lot of people, it's really, really irritating when you get a message from somebody who has very clearly not read your profile. And this is the thing that I brought up, I think in the last video or the video before that, where somebody was asking me to be a referee for a cyber match, and I don't do cyber. It's just one of those things that if it's very clear that you haven't read the person's profile, then first of all, you're not respecting them. You're not respecting their wants and their needs. And so, of course, that's going to end up not great, right? If you don't fit the bill of what they're looking for, we are a very diverse community. Not everybody wants the same thing, so you need to respect that first and foremost. And the next one is looking at what do their past opponents look like, and this can actually be pretty useful for you. I do this all the time when before I ever message somebody, I will actually open their profile. I'll look at everything that I can learn before I ever message anybody. And so I will look at their photos, I will look at what kind of matches that they like, I'll look at their stats really briefly, I'll read their descriptions, and then I will oftentimes go into the reviews and I'll read the reviews, or at least a couple of them. And it's not just, what is the ratio of good experiences or bad experiences, but what are people saying about this individual that you were thinking about contacting? How do they play? You can actually get a sometimes more clear picture of what this person's style is and what actually appeals to them by reading what other people have said about them. So that actually can be something that's very helpful for you. And what needs of theirs do you fit, right? And I think that is, again, another one of those things that people presume that if you are on Meet Fighters, you're just looking for fighters, and that could be literally anybody. And, you just kind of showing up and going, okay, well, I fit the bill because I'm technically on the same side as you. That's not going to be the case, right? So, if you find people that are in interest groups or in chat rooms or things like that, and you guys are talking about a lot of the similar things that are going to appeal to both of you, maybe that's where you need to be starting the conversation, not necessarily just kind of assuming that people are going to be interested in you. And generally, universally, people want to meet people who are safe, reliable, and fun. Why are we here? We're not here, hiring an employee or looking for necessarily a sexual or relationship partner. Some people are, some people are not. And so, if your profile says, I want to beat the shit out of somebody and I want to leave them with injuries, then you need to find somebody that is looking to be injured and explicitly says so. But for most people, they want to go in and they want to not have a damaged knee or a broken elbow or something like that. So, they want to know that they're safe. They want to know that you're actually going to show up when you say you're going to. So being good with that communication is very important. And they want to make sure that you're going to have a fun time. And the times that I have rolled with people and I would not roll with them again, oftentimes there's like an ego issue, or they're being very sensitive about certain aspects of how things go down, and sometimes it's not going to always be my fault. It might actually be the other person, and sometimes it's just like there is going to be an experience gap. Sometimes there's going to be a muscle gap. So sometimes you have to be like, well, this is more one-sided than I want it to be, so I'm not having as much fun as I wanted. Maybe we should call it off or something like that. But really, really trying to be respectful and courteous throughout the entire thing. Now, one note that I have here is, and I put the be courteous and respectful in a different bullet because there is a potential DS exception to that, right? So if somebody is more of a dominant, they are more of somebody that enjoys talking down to people, enjoys asserting themselves as superior to somebody else, there might be an exception to that, but you have to be really careful with that. And I remember when I first started out in the leather community, I joined up on Recon, and I was pretty much 100% sub at the time. I didn't have the experience to be a dominant, and I didn't know that I would actually enjoy topping other people, and that's changed for me. But at that point in time, because I presented as more subby, but I think that even at that time, I was more of just a bottom rather than a sub. Like, I was somebody that wanted to be tied up. I wanted to have some torture going on. I wanted to experience things. But I didn't necessarily want to be degraded or talked down to. But a lot of people on Recon at that time saw me as younger, saw me as a twink, saw me as, very much so a sub. And so they just talked to me like I was a little bitch. And I found it degrading, and it really turned me off with those people. I found them to be way too aggressive, and it was just not a great experience. And maybe, those would have been people that I might have worked well with had I given them more of a chance. But they kind of derailed that by asserting the DS role without establishing first that was something that I would be receptive to or that I would want. So you have to be very careful with the language that people put in their profiles, whether or not you're going to step into that dominant sub dynamic, right? For me, for somebody to be a dominant, oftentimes they kind of have to earn that dominance, especially since I am somebody that can kick most people's butts. So that is just one of those things, right? And so, okay, going on to the... so are you presenting yourself in a way that people are going to want to play with you? And so, when it comes to this, when I see a lot of profiles, especially people who are brand new to Meat Fighters, they don't have any matches under the belt, things like that, where, everything about their profile is just kind of ick, right? You don't want to be, looking, presenting yourself like a highway or a hotel that's like right by the highway that mostly charges by the hour, right? You don't want to, like, people walk in and there's mold everywhere and you're like, right? And that's how a lot of people on Meat Fighters, on Recon, on Grindr present themselves, is that they don't take, first of all, they don't take good photos. If you don't have friends, I don't know what to tell you, but we all have, smartphones these days that take photos that are of professional quality. And so get out to where there's going to be good lighting, take some good quality photos that that show you in the best possible light. And that can be taken a little bit literally, right? If you were taking a photo that is so dark that it looks like, you're sitting in front of your computer with the lights off and the only lighting you have is coming off of your computer, that's going to look like a shitty photo. I don't care if, you're Brad Pitt or somebody else that's like ridiculously handsome. That's probably not going to show you in a way that people are going to find you attractive. So oftentimes, like, it really does come down to, okay, lighting, things like that. Potentially going for a long walk or a hike before you take the photos so that you have better circulation, so that you, maybe if you're struggling with depression, is your depression showing through? Things like that people can read and they don't necessarily know what it is, but they can pick up on it. That can be, something that may dissuade somebody from wanting to roll with you. And I know that that's difficult. I am somebody that struggles with depression. And I have had photos that I've had up in profiles that I just needed something that was up to date, and I did not take the newest or the best possible photo because I just needed something. And when I look at those photos, I'm just like, what the fuck was I thinking? So really, if you have friends or if you have other people you can talk to, you can talk to me and just be like, hey, send me a message on Meat Fighters, send me 5 or 6 photos that you took, ask me which one that you want to have as your profile photo, and I will tell you which one is going to show you in the best light, because really at this day and age, I don't see an excuse why people still put up really, really shitty photos onto their profiles. And sometimes you guys just really, really look like serial killers. So, you can do better. And so when we're writing our profile, one of the things that is really, really obnoxious to me is getting to a profile that has one sentence and it's the most vapid sentence that you could write. Something like, I don't know what to put here. I did an entire video on that. I actually think I've done 2 now. So you can go back and you can read or watch those videos. and think about it and try to find out what makes you interesting. But when it comes to the description, you want to be somewhere probably between maybe 3 as like pushing it, but you really want to be at like 4 to maybe 9 sentences long. And these are average length sentences, they're not run on sentences, and you want to paint a picture of what makes you interesting, what makes you fun, how do I say that? Safe, reliable, fun. And that you're courteous and respectful, and that really, really shows you as a type of person that somebody wants to roll with. And a lot of people really, really neglect that part. And you don't want to be like me. If you guys find my profile on Meat Fighters, I think it's just Chris Wrestling, which is the dumbest name for a wrestling profile ever, but whatever. But you go to that and you'll see that mine, if a lot of people are going to see the description of mine and they're going to just be turned off because it's just way too fucking long. And if you're somebody that has a good narrative voice, like you can actually paint a really, really interesting, fun, and or sexy picture with what you're saying, then you can have a little bit of a longer description because you can pull people in, but oftentimes people just see the size of a description and they shut down and they're just not going to bother to take the time. So really that you want to be in that kind of 4 to 9 sentence window, and you can break it up into 2 or 3 sentences per paragraph, 3 little paragraphs that just look like quick bullet points. That's very, very easy to read. This is just like writing a resume, guys. It's really just to give people a general idea of what you're about, and that I think is going to help people be more turned on by you. And the same thing about going back to the photos really quick, because I didn't put this in my notes very well. I apologize. But when we look at the photos, they don't necessarily need to be hypersexualized. You don't need to be ripped. You don't need to be like putting on a show. You just want to show yourself in a good light in the way that you want to be represented, right? So it really, I think authenticity matters more. And I also think that when you get more established, having photos of your matches, whether faces are blurred out or whatever, cropped off, doesn't matter as much, but whatever is going to show that you are having fun with somebody else. When people can see that, the faster they see that, the more likely it is that they're going to have a positive response with you. But remember that, and I think I meant to put this in here and I didn't, is that, you are the product, right? You're trying to sell yourself. And so you're representing your own way meant to attract the people that you want to play with. So you're not trying to necessarily attract everybody, right? If you've gotten anything from me over the last couple of years when it's come to wrestling, is that wrestling is a diverse sport. As far as people on Meat Fighters go, people have very, very different needs and interests. Again, that's why we're talking about descriptions here. And so, you're not going to attract everybody. You don't want to attract everybody. Not everybody's for you. Not everybody's for me. You want to attract the people that you want to play with, right? And that are going to be very interested in the way that you want to play, as well as the body type or mentality, whether it's dominant, submissive, things like that. So really, really try to understand what is your target audience. And how are you going to appeal to that target audience? So that's really, really critical. The next thing is, don't lie or catfish in your profile. Don't misrepresent yourself by saying that you are somebody that you're not. The thing is that when you share a photo that's not you, people are going to see you. They're going to open your door, or you're going to show up at their house, and you're not going to be who you said that you were, whether it's via description or via your photos, and that never ends well. It really doesn't. I don't know why people think that that is still okay, because it's absolutely not. And it's not going to get what you want, and what's going to really end up happening is that things might get aggressive, people might snap back at you. These are not comfortable situations that you're putting yourself in by misrepresenting yourself. So it's really, really important that you are your true authentic self, because that's what's going to be attractive to people. And I know that some people that may be watching, some people that I've interacted with in the past, are going to say, no, 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 it's the other people that are the problem, and I'm not, or will say that, I'm not attractive, or there's something wrong with me. No, that's not the case. Usually. And in these cases, oftentimes, and we'll get back to this later, but it's usually going to be something that you did that shows that you are a toxic person. And that is what people are responding to, or makes people feel like you're a toxic person. I'm not necessarily accusing you of being a toxic person, but that's what people are reading. And you need to understand that that is what you're projecting. So you need to be very mindful about that. I think that I mentioned this that a couple times, or maybe I haven't, but more experienced rollers need to understand that being more experienced sometimes isn't the selling point that you think it is. And I run into this all the time, where people can be more put off by me or afraid of rolling with me because of my experience. They think that I'm going to hurt them, or that they're going to spend all their time getting smashed, which may or may not be the case. But it's really important for us more experienced guys to emphasize that we are controlled in our roles, that we're actually going to be safer because of that. And it's really important to us that both people have a very good time. So what is it that the lesser experienced person wants to be getting out of the role? And we need to be very mindful of that. The next stage is, getting out of the profiles, is how we conduct ourselves when we are messaging and talking to prospective opponents. And again, we are talking about, if you haven't read the other person's profile, and you are bringing up things that they are not, haven't explicitly said that they're into, you might ask, would you be interested in this? But if it's not in their profile, be kind of open to the idea that they're not going to be into that. And one of the things that is a continual problem that I run into is that people can be very, very either expecting rejection, and that can be problematic. We'll talk about that later. But also that they're not receptive to why that rejection is happening. And oftentimes it's not personal. Oftentimes it's just that our interests do not align. So, you want to also, read the other person, how they are chatting with you when you are first messaging with them. Some people really want to just get down to business. And this is true to me to a certain extent, and I know I didn't put it in my outline, so I'm going to go ahead and mention it now, is that if you haven't noticed, we're all pretty well spread out. They're, in your own locale, sometimes you can find it to be frustrating to find people that are local, that share your interests. Oftentimes our interests can be very esoteric, not understood or not appreciated by a large group of people. And so sometimes we have to rely on travel. And so, if somebody isn't traveling to your city, and you're not planning on traveling to theirs, then it's kind of rude and presumptuous to expect somebody else to pick up their life and pay for a plane ticket and fly out to you to wrestle with you. And yet a lot of people do that. A lot of people message you and they, will ask you to come out to them. Really, I think that it's really important for us to be putting in our travel plans into our profile so people know where we're traveling. And if you haven't put it into your profile and you're messaging somebody, you need to declare to that person, hey, I'm going to be in your area during these dates. This is why I'm interested in rolling with you. And you mentioned specific things in their profile where you think your both interests align. And then you would say, would you be interested in playing with me while I'm in town? My husband would disagree with this point, and the thing is that he maintains conversations with people for a very, very long time, and so he has probably a network of like hundreds of DOMs throughout the entire planet, and he talks with them, he chats with them, he shares ideas with them, and there are no plans necessarily to go meet them. So if you're really looking at the, okay, maybe someday the stars will align properly and we will end up in the same town at the same time, and we might actually hook up at that time, or maybe, I'm considering, maybe flying to someplace new, and I'm trying to determine whether or not, you would be somebody that I would want to go out and fly to. But really, for me, it's a lot to juggle a lot of people. I have probably a lot of people that I have favorited or become fans of or whatever on Meat Fighters, and that is so that I can keep track of people, so that if I'm going to an area, I'll go through that favorites list, and then that's when I'll contact people. So it's kind of like, oh, I found somebody who's really interesting to me. Let's just put a little note there. We'll put a little marking there so that I can actually look that person up easily later on down the road, so I know to contact them when I'm in their area. But I don't tend to reach out prematurely. And I'm not saying that it's not necessarily wrong to do so. It's not wrong to try to make connections. What is wrong is presuming that people are going to fly to you. Or, if you're going to reach out to somebody that you are not going to be able to meet immediately, then really you need to be clear about what your purpose is for reaching out, because everybody's time is valuable. Not everybody has a lot of time to just mindly just chit chat with just everybody. So kind of being really, really direct with your purpose, saying, hey, I want to get to know you a little bit better. Maybe someday, if we really connect, I might be very motivated to come visit you, or something like that, or you have some really interesting ideas about blank. Can we have a conversation about this mutual interest? That would be something that I would say that might, because you're showing why the conversation is productive. Right, that's what I'm really getting down to. But if you're just messaging somebody and you're expecting them to fly to you, or you just don't really have an objective, then you're really just wasting people's time. So really be mindful of that. It's not necessarily rude or inconsiderate, or that person's some kind of bastard for not wanting to just have that chit chat for you, because everybody, again, has very different objectives. Some of us just want to meet to roll, and so it's really important that you're mindful about that. And then the next thing would be, also reading the other person. I started with this before I went on that tangent, and trying to figure out whether or not they want to have a longer conversation or just get to rolling. So maybe there's going to be very few questions back and forth to just gauge mutual interest, and it's really just about the yes or no, do you want to play or do you not? And so, if that's the game, you need to recognize it pretty quickly and fall into that game if you're comfortable with doing that. If you feel like you need to have a longer conversation to determine interests, you might not be able to connect with somebody that is really, really about that immediate gratification. And so you need to recognize what kind of personality that you're talking to. The next thing is to ask open-ended questions that shows an interest in them. And so really, you could say, for example, I was talking to a boy earlier today that messaged me off of Grindr that was into head scissors, and I'm curious, which role do you want in that? Do you want to trade back and forth? Do you just want to be on one side or the other? Do you want, what do you like about it? And also, to what ends are you looking for? How long are you expecting? Have you actually done it? Things like that. And really you want them to be as open-ended as possible, because you want people to, first of all, you want to show them that you're interested in them, but you're also trying to actually collect more information. And when you listen to other people, then people interpret that as empathy. People interpret that as that you're a nicer person. So when you are always just speaking and talking and speaking from your point of view and talking about what you want, yes, to one extent, that people are going to find you interesting, hopefully. And you want to put out what's interesting about you, but hopefully that's already in your profile, right? So when you make the focus about the other person, then they are going to read you as being interested in them. And that's going to flatter them. That's going to make them feel like they're important to you. And that's actually really, rather important. And then the next thing is mirroring. Now sitcoms sometimes will spoof this and kind of misinterpret what mirroring is as being like if somebody has their hand up like my hand is right now, and they put their hand down on the table, you do the same thing. And that shows kind of like an empathy thing, sort of like sympathetic yawning. When one person yawns, another person tends to yawn too, because yawning is contagious, and it has something to do with empathy in our brains that we do that. But what mirroring really is, and I think especially in this context when we're talking about a digital age, is it's showing that you're paying attention to what they're saying, and that what they are saying is important to you. So when I say mirroring in the context of having an online conversation, emails back and forth, is that somebody says something and you repeat a fraction of what that is. Maybe use some of the words that they used in your next message that indicates that you understood their point and what they were saying. Right? And sometimes this can be follow-up questions that are just like, when you say this, that's really interesting to me. I'm curious to know what your perspective on this is. And you might even throw in a little bit of saying, this was kind of what my interpretation of this situation might be. And you put in maybe a little bit of your own perspective, but really what it's about is showing that that point that they brought up was important to them. And then you're throwing that back at them so that they can, again, continue talking, so you can continue to listen, and also so that they can feel like you're really, really paying attention to what they're saying. And, I'm not saying this just because, I'm trying to teach you guys how to manipulate other people into liking you, but these are just general social skills. And not for some of us, it's not always natural for us to do these things. So maybe, just having them on the back of your mind and being mindful about them will actually help you get to what you want a little bit easier. And I already did that. My example here is going back to the head scissor jobber, which apparently I was just in the same headspace because I just finished that conversation. But anyways, if talking to a head scissor jobber, a heel might talk about his style of scissoring, right? Do you like to snap on the scissor really quickly, or do you like to do it really slowly? Do you like to see people struggle? How do you respond to taps, right? Do you like to get people to tap a lot and then hold it and see how long until they really, really panic? Or maybe you like making people pass out, or maybe things like that. Talking about that, pushing it that far might scare people away. But, really talking about what it is about your style that is potentially going to be interesting to the person that you're talking to. And so, yeah. And I do have a note here that focus on that this is a meetup. Remember that it's a meetup, that it's not a date or a relationship. Sometimes, and this is really responding to a specific individual that seems to want a lot more out of his wrestling hookups than most people are looking for. And we need to understand that Meat Fighters in a lot of ways is a hookup site. You might make better connections with people. You might actually find romantic partners out of this, but that's generally not what most people are looking for. This is actually kind of like wrestling sniffies, where, on sniffies, pretty much everybody's looking for penetrative sex or a quick blowjob, and they're not really looking for a whole lot else. And they're certainly not looking for relationships. And Grindr's a little bit in the middle there, but with Meat Fighters, like a lot of times, in my experience, most people are looking for, spending an hour or two with you, rolling because it's hot. Maybe they want to get off, maybe they don't. So it's really not always going to be about the long-term connection. It's not always going to be about trying to form a relationship. And so you really, really need to not expect one, unless that's really, really clear that that's where that's going, and that like you guys are meeting, 3 times a week to wrestle all the time, and you just really, really are connecting. That might be the time where those kinds of things can start being talked about, but really, really, I wouldn't bring it up even on Meat Fighters that you're looking for a relationship, because it's probably not what most people are looking for. But and expecting it is, I think, doing you more harm than good. So yeah. Yeah, and this again goes into kind of a similar thing, is that don't bring your baggage into the messages that you when you're chatting with people online, and that is something that I need to work on, and I know some people that really, really need to work on it, because when you have bad past relationships or bad experiences in the past, it's one thing to be open a little bit about maybe you're being insecure or something like that, and maybe you're just trying to explain why you're behaving in a way that you are, and that needs to be something that needs to be kind of in therapy, and you need to be more mindful about it. But talking about how everybody thinks you're ugly, or this, that, or the other, or I need to show so and so about that I'm a legitimate person, or I'm a good wrestler, things like that. Things like that really, really put people on guard, and it shuts people down, and they're not going to be interested in you when you bring your baggage to the table. They're looking for a good time. Again, going back to that first point, that are you going to be safe, reliable, and fun? And when you come in there and you are being just all over the place about your insecurities, about your bad past experiences, and you're bringing that to the table, you are telling people that this is what it's going to be when we meet. That when we are rolling, when they are coming out in order to just have a nice, fun, maybe not relaxing, but you'll feel relaxed afterwards, but a refreshing afternoon, and you are going off and you are spouting about all these things that make you look like a toxic individual, that's what people are going to see. And so it's really, really important that you, bring your best self, your authentic self. I don't want you to pretend like you don't have trauma, or that you don't have depression, or things like that. But remember that what people are looking for is to have fun. And if you are being not fun, people are going to be like, you're not fun. I don't want to play with that. And it's really, really that simple. So really keep it about what people are going to be interested in, and save your therapy for therapy as much as you possibly can. And I know that for some of us, it's not always easy to do that. Sometimes we just, people ask me how I am. And I made this mistake about talking about my injury with somebody online that was really just looking for a hookup. And I'm just being honest with where I'm at, but also, that wasn't what he was looking for, and he's going to see that, and maybe he did respond, and we did have a good conversation, but it's one of those things that understand what the person is looking for, and present the part of you that is going to fit within that. If you guys become better friends down the road, they might be more interested in hearing about that. They might be more supportive and receptive to those things. But really, especially when there are a bazillion fish in the sea, and you are that's the way that you're presenting yourself all the time to everybody, nobody's going to want to play with you, and that's just a reality. And then the next thing, and I've said this a few times, and I don't know that it's ever landed, because I still see a lot of people who have this problem, is that remember that you are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. No matter how many ways that you can demonstrate that you are the perfect fit for that person, they may not always see it that way. Maybe there is something about you. Maybe they picked up something on your language. Maybe there's a lot of reasons why somebody might not want to roll with you. And it may not be a personal flaw any way, shape, or form. It's not really a commentary on you. I think that when it comes down to it, when some people are definitely going to have a harder time finding people to play with than others. And that's just a fact of life. But it's not necessarily a value statement on you. And, hopefully the things that I've presented here, some of them you could be like, oh, wow, I'm making a lot of mistakes over here. Maybe I can change this, and maybe it helps you. But at the end of the day, some people are just going to appeal to different people differently. And it's important to understand that, again, you can't control the other person. You can only control the things that you have control over, which is how you represent yourself, how you conduct yourself, what kind of photos you take, things like that. And also, the people that you choose to reach out to. That was one of the very first things that I pointed out here. And so, if you are somebody who is, I didn't put this in my notes here because it's a kind of a rough point to make, but I'm going to make it, which is that when you think about people who are especially in a wrestling community, and a gay wrestling community, especially when it comes to the sexualized side of things, I would say a majority of the people who are on Meat Fighters have a objectification of this manly ideal that a college wrestler represents, right? Or a UFC fighter represents. These are people that are have ridiculous physiques. They are in the best shape of their lives, and that can very much so represent manliness to them. And so, that's not a cookie cutter mold that most of us fit into. I certainly don't. And so, I'm not saying that that's how everybody is, but when you are reaching out to people who very, very clearly seem to pick the people who fit into that mold, and then you're like, "Ugh, nobody wants to roll with me." Well, you're picking people that don't seem to want to go with a type that may fit your body type. There are definitely people who are absolutely all about bears. Sometimes people want people who are very hairy. Sometimes people want people who are very heavy. Some people love that size difference play. Some people, I did make a comment that I feel not great about on one of the Body Scissor forums, where I said that, with my knee condition and with wanting to have healthy knees, I don't necessarily always want to body scissor somebody who's very large, because it puts a lot of strain on my knees, and I don't get the leverage that I want to, so I feel very weak when I'm doing it. And so there is something about there's a lot of elements to that go into making it a less than ideal experience for me as somebody who's topping for that. And that's not necessarily a kind thing to say, which is why I regretted saying it. But at the same time, it is an objective truth. And so when it comes to, if you don't fit into the cookie cutter ideal, and again, most of us actually don't, it's really about trying to find the people who you are their ideal. And I'm going to guarantee that pretty much almost everybody that is out there, with very, 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 very few exceptions, you do fit the ideals for somebody. And so it's really about trying to find and vet the people that you would be attractive to. So it's really about finding the type that you are and matching that, right? So, and what this comes back down to, and I know that was not the nicest point for me to be making. I do appreciate that, but at the same time, I think that is a reality in our community that we need to kind of accept. And so, going back to that idea that you can't control how others respond to you, you need to also remember that you are not entitled to them. You're not entitled to their attention. You're not entitled to them wanting to participate with you. And a lot of people can get very, very hostile when they find out that you are just not what they're looking for. And it's really important that, you take it like an adult. that you understand that everybody has their own choices that they can make, and you can't force them. So, when you, and I think this goes down to a conversation I was having yesterday where somebody had apparently had a bad experience where they had gotten, a lot of bad reviews on Meat Fighters, and then they had confrontations with the owners, and the owners weren't receptive to their side. Is that, I think that generally speaking, in my experience, it's not particularly easy to get a bad review on Meat Fighters, because the thing is that there is a a certain level where that can become reciprocal. You'll usually find when somebody puts a bad review for somebody else, or marks somebody, the other person will mark them as well, and it becomes a mark on both of you. And if somebody has, I think over my entire time at Meat Fighters, I have flagged two people, and neither one of them show up in my profile anymore. And it's one of those things that, generally speaking, people have a good time with me. And if you're really, really focusing on trying to have a good time and trying to be hospitable and friendly to everybody, it's really hard to get those bad check marks. So, I don't want to necessarily say that, be like, you're the problem, but that might be something that you need to consider, that the way that you're conducting yourself, maybe when somebody rejects you, you are not gracious about it. You take it personally. You become hostile about it. Those behaviors don't reflect well on you, and that's where you're getting those bad checks from. And that can be in the messaging. It can be in not showing up for meetups, or being flaky, or having a bad attitude when you're rolling in a way that's not safe. Really, the bar, especially when people don't want to have those marks against themselves, people aren't really particularly motivated to give you a bad mark. So really, if they're doing that, and that's happening more than once, then there is behavior that you are doing that needs to be addressed, that needs to be reflected upon, and you need to accept responsibility for that behavior, because it's usually not that they're the problem, right? If they're the ones who are flagging you. People don't generally go, oh, this person's not attractive to me, so I'm gonna, report them to Meat Fighters. That's not how it works. It's usually that there's going to be something where the conduct is bad enough that they feel that they have to, sometimes because it is a matter of responsibility, that other people need to be warned about this other person. So look at your conduct if you are getting a lot of those, and start thinking about it as being, oh, this is something that I need to work on. This is something that I need to address in order to, not have these bad experiences, because ultimately you don't want to be in those conflicts any more than they want to be in them. You don't want those marks any more than they want to give them to you. So really do your part, and understand that there may need to be some adjusting on your part that needs to happen. And I'm sorry that some people might feel the need to, respond, but, here's the thing, is that just because somebody else is a dick to you doesn't mean that you should be a dick. And this goes back again to the guy that wanted me to officiate the cyber mud rolling, right? Is that I basically kind of told him that I didn't know how that would work for me, and it wasn't something that I'd be interested in. And he took it very personally. He took it as me being rude, and so he lashed out at me. And maybe the way that I phrased it, because I had just come out of surgery, I was not in a clear head at the time. Maybe the way that I phrased it was not the best way of phrasing it. And then by him lashing out at me, he escalated it. And then I kind of defended my position. I tried to be as respectful as possible, and I actually put in an apology. And he continued to escalate. So instead of reporting him or anything like that, I just deleted the conversation. I blocked him. And sometimes that's what you just have to do. But really, nobody benefits from escalation. And if anything, especially in the last, what has it been, 7 to 8 years when we've been dealing with Trump and all this misinformation and the fighting back and forth and all that and all the politics, where, when people get into this headspace where they become aggressive, it's very unlikely that we're going to do anything that's going to be productive to change their mind or to calm them down, other than just apologize and, do what you can to just, try to ease the situation. And that includes when people are doing personal attacks. So really emphasize taking the high road as much as you possibly can, because the toxicity isn't going to benefit you. It's not going to get you what you want. And I think that once things have already reached that place where there is toxicity between you and another person, it's very unlikely that people are going to actually resolve that issue and get into a place where you actually want to roll with each other. So there's really no point to continue to pursue that argument. There's no point in being right. There's no point in being aggressive or anything like that. It's just let it go, move on to the next thing, because some people are just not going to be for you. Some people are not going to read what you say and understand what you say. And it's really important that you really do what's going to be best for your own mental health, right? Continuing in those conversations, having those fights, they're not going to benefit you in the short run. They're not going to benefit you in the long run. They might even make you, more prone to being aggressive with people when things start to escalate. So really, anytime that you can find a way to be the better person, to be the more polite person in these interactions, the better you're going to be. So, yeah, whew, that's a lot, guys. This is a long one, but I think this is actually really important stuff to be actually thinking about. And again, I do want to invite polite discussion on this particular topic, because maybe you guys have actually found other things, or maybe you disagree with some of the points that I've made here. And I really want to make this be as beneficial for people as possible. And I hope that people are being receptive to this. So the next thing is that, this whole thing has been about presenting your best self, presenting you as somebody that people want to interact with. And the reality of that is that you also have to be somebody that people want to interact with. And that may sound more like an attack, that might sound toxic, but let me go ahead and explain my point a little bit more. I met with a guy, I think this was also off of Grindr, when I first moved to Tacoma, so about 3 years ago. And there was nothing wrong with this guy. He was generally attractive enough. We met at a park and we sat down and we talked, and we were trying to get to know each other. And he works in a retail position, and he goes home and he just veggies out on the TV, and he just doesn't interact with the world. He doesn't have interests outside of going to work, and he doesn't like his job, and he just there is nothing about his life that seems to bring him joy. And so I am sitting there and feeling like, well, I feel like spending any more time with you is just going to be boring. And so, that's not necessarily a value statement for some, people that, have a job that, keeps them busy or things like that. This person did not have a job that dominated his life. He was working retail. But the thing about that is that, if you are a person that doesn't have interests, if you are a person that isn't engaging in the world, you're not taking care of your own mental health. You're not feeding and stimulating your own mind. You should be out there reading books. You should be going to the movies once in a while. You should be eating out. Tell me about your favorite restaurant. And to give you kind of a contrast to this, the first guy I ever had sex with, this was probably about 2008 or so. I had, again, met him off of, I think, gay.com or something like that, back in the day when that was a thing. And we ended up going to the Sci-Fi Museum at Seattle Center. And sci-fi isn't really my thing. I'm not the biggest Star Trek or Star Wars fan. I haven't seen every episode of everything. They're fine shows. I enjoy them. But, I'm more of a horror guy, and I like comedies and things like that, and I've got a great sense of humor. And so we were walking through the museum, and the guy I was with was just so absolutely excited. He saw Captain Kirk's chair, and he was just geeking out over the top, just like, no, you don't understand, Chris. This is Captain Kirk's chair. That, like, he actually sat there, right? That was the chair on the Enterprise, and we're going through, and he was just so enthusiastic and so nerdy about all the things that we were walking through when we were walking through that museum, and I was so attracted to him in that moment, even though I did not necessarily share his passion, right? We got to a digital display of all the different starships from all the different series, and we came across the starship, the Red Dwarf. And I started quoting Red Dwarf because I actually love that show. I find it hilarious. And, we had a moment where we actually connected and we bonded. And so when you go out into the world and you have interests, and you are passionate and you are enthusiastic about those interests, for one, it's going to feed your brain. It's going to make you a happier and healthier person. And when you talk to people and that nerdiness comes out, some people are going to find that really, really attractive, even if they don't share in that interest. And so, be interesting. And just not even just because you're going to be interesting to others, but because you're going to be feeding that part of your soul as well. And we are in a wrestling community, so there is very easy. It's very easy to find common ground here with people if they have a similar expression of wrestling as you do, right? So, many of the people that I see struggling, the things that I notice as like very, very common things, and we've touched on all of this pretty much already, but is that you project insecurity, right? There's nothing wrong with being an insecure person, but when you project a certain level of insecurity, it puts people on edge. And people might be less likely to engage with you. So again, having those passions, like what I was just mentioning, having things that you can talk about with some level of confidence or enthusiasm will help mitigate that insecurity that you're projecting. When you really, really come into a room and you are feeling really awkward, and I see a couple guys that are at the bar who are like this, and I'm like this actually. That go there and they're expecting other people to come to them. And they are just feeling really shy and awkward, and they're walking around the bar like really, really closed off. People read that, people feel that, and they don't want to necessarily engage with that. So, going there with friends, right? And if you can say, like, sometimes when back in the day, there was a guy that was at our place back when that was a thing, who I was attracted to, and I told my now ex about that. And so I said I was too shy to walk up to him. And so my ex went over, like pulled him over and started the conversation where I couldn't do it. And so sometimes there's a way around those awkwardnesses, those insecurities, and once people start to see that there is a great person underneath that insecurity, they're going to be receptive to that. So it's really, really important for you to acknowledge that is a difficulty and start finding ways around that insecurity. And when we're talking on, Meet Fighters or in a chat room or something like that, we are in this kind of somewhat of a safe space where we can kind of have that security blanket of not being in the same room with somebody. And sometimes we can find that having conversations with people becomes a little bit easier. And so being more open about who you are with a stranger online might be easier for you to do than what might happen in person. And so, start looking for that connection, ways that you guys can meld together. But be just very careful about and try to be aware. And if you can't always tell, because we can't, I've been told by a friend that I have resting bitch face sometimes when I'm in play parties and things like that. And so some people are uncomfortable necessarily walking up to me. And so, sometimes you need that third person to look and see and being like, okay, well, this is what I'm seeing that might be projecting that. So, finding ways of getting around that so you're projecting the type of person that you want to project, right? And I know that it's bad advice, but fake it till you make it. Not necessarily terrible here. Other people that are struggling that I see tend to be very prone to being aggressive online, and it's especially when it comes to politics. I can be too aggressive, or if I have like a strong disagreement with somebody, I can be too aggressive about that, and I am working on that. But that is something that I think a lot of people can get to really easily. And I think that you need to start giving people the benefit of the doubt with what they say online. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier when it comes to messages and when things start to feel heated. A lot of times, really, I feel like 9 times out of 10, when things get heated in my conversations with people online, it's usually that there is a misunderstanding. And so you need to start giving people the benefit of the doubt when somebody says something that you think might be aggressive. And if somebody says that that wasn't their intention, you need to actually listen to them and accept that that was not their intention and be like, I'm sorry that I jumped to that. Or if somebody says something that might be offensive, you might ask for clarification. What do you mean by that? But really trying to avoid getting aggressive as much as you possibly can, because again, that's not flattering on you. It's not going to get you what you want, and ultimately, nobody's going to give you the time of day if you're always aggressive. So, and that's what my next point was. Reading into responses, something that is not there, and then you don't accept the clarification when it's given. That happens to me all the time. Not something that I usually do. I try not to do that, but people will do it to me. And so it's really important that you are asking for clarification and not always taking things on face value, because sometimes the way that people phrase them, something is not really what they meant to say. So give people the benefit of the doubt from time to time, okay? The next thing is that people who are struggling, they don't vet the people that they're reaching out to, right? And what I mean by that, and this goes right back to the top, read the goddamn profile, look at the photos, look at their past opponents, try to understand what this person is looking for before you reach out to them. And so, if you are reaching out to somebody and you do not fit what you're seeing as far as the people that are looking for, you don't seem to have common interests, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're going after people who maybe you just see them and you're like, oh, you're hot, but they're there for a purpose. They're on Meat Fighters for a purpose. And if you are not respecting what they're looking for, then it's not going to go anywhere that you want it to go. And oftentimes that can lead to arguments and things that can not be fun for anybody. So the next thing is going back to this idea of taking care of yourself. And I am somebody I've been in therapy for couple years before the pandemic, so I think it's been about 6 to 8 years. And I have gone through a bunch of medications. Some of them made me batshit crazy, some of them didn't. And some of the things that I've learned in therapy have helped, some of them have not. But you need to, I really do advocate for therapy. Some of the people that are really struggling on here are people that, from what I read and from the interactions I've had with them, are people who probably actually would benefit from therapy. And I don't mean that in any kind of insulting way. I'm not saying that you're necessarily a bad person. I'm saying that there are things that you need to talk about and address. And a lot of times that's going to be your perceptions of everybody else. And again, what I've kind of come back to is that you can't control anybody else. All you can control is yourself. And, when you say that, everybody thinks I'm ugly, or everybody thinks that I'm stupid, or everybody thinks this or that, what a therapist is going to tell you pretty quickly is, did they say that to you directly? Right? Who said that to you directly? They're going to challenge that, right? Is that something that you're hearing repeatedly? And I'm going to stick with the ugly part, because that is one that I hear a particular person bring up a lot. This person is not somebody that I find unattractive. And I'm saying that right out, is that our conversations stopped not because he was unattractive, or not a good wrestler, or not a valuable person. They stopped because he was always projecting those insecurities towards me, and he was being very toxic about that. And so, the therapist, when they're talking to you, they're going to say, has somebody said that specifically to you directly? How many people have said that? What was the context that that was said in? Was it in the middle of an argument? Were you having a fight? Were you breaking up? Was it something like that? If somebody said that you were ugly when you were in the middle of a breakup, that was probably you were in a relationship to begin with. So they didn't find you ugly when that relationship started. When you get into that breakup, people say things that are hurtful. People that say things that they don't necessarily believe are true. And so, when you are carrying around those perceptions because somebody said it once, and now you're projecting it on absolutely everybody, that makes you. That's the thing that's making you undesirable, right? And it's probably not true. And so you need to actually channel and look at, okay, well, what are the pros about me? What are the things about me that make me love myself, right? Because if you don't love yourself, if you don't accept that you are attractive, then people are going to pick up on that and they're going to agree with you, right? And so, this person that I'm referring to specifically, I actually really hope that someday I see him coming back as a completely different person who doesn't take every fucking conversation to that place, right? That he doesn't bring down and somehow turn any conversation. We could be talking about baking brownies, and it will turn into how ugly am I? Everybody hates me, and that is one of those things that you need to talk with somebody who's going to challenge that and start guiding you towards a place where you see your own value. Because as long as you're telling people that you don't have value, they're going to believe you. And that's really coming from you, that's not coming from them. So you need to take ownership of that. And so talking to a therapist is something that's going to help you. And, if you are facing a lot of rejection on Meat Fighters, maybe there are places, maybe you don't need to talk to a therapist, but you can talk to friends or anything like that. Share your conversations that you've had with them. And they might go through there and be like, ugh, you really shouldn't have said that. You really shouldn't have brought that up. You shouldn't have responded that way to this, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this in this video, is because when I've talked to these people about these issues, it feels like an attack, and it's not. And I really, since I'm not talking about you specifically, I'm talking very generally, I'm hoping that you see this as not being an attack and as being me trying to be helpful for you people. So, yeah, and I talked about this, having other interests that you are passionate about. This is part of self-care. Getting out of the house, doing things that you find interesting. I recently went out and we had the Aurora Borealis here. This is probably my 4th or 5th time going out trying to see it. And this, if you saw the news, it was fucking amazing. And I show people pictures of that, and I'm very enthusiastic about it, right? I'm a musician, that's another thing. There's a lot of things about who I am as a person that make me interesting to a lot of people that I interact with. And which ones I bring up usually depends on my audience. So, really, finding interests is another thing that's going to help people to find you attractive. So don't be afraid of that. The last thing is that I put on here is to exercise. And I'm not saying that because I'm saying that you need to change your body type or anything like that, but it is part of self-care. Getting out there and exercising is going to be one of those things that especially look at where we're at. We're talking about a wrestling community. We're talking about people who want to wrestle. If you are wrestling and you are getting gassed out a minute into every match, and you're just always having to pause and you just don't have the stamina to keep up and things like that, that is on you to address. That is on you to fix. So I would say that, I put it on the list because it's really, really about your own self-care and taking care of yourself, because when you don't exercise, you're going to be more prone to depression. You're going to look like you're depressed. You're going to look more moody. You're going to have all these things that are going to project that exercise is actually going just to help that outer glow of who you are and who you present to the world. So I do believe that that is something that can actually help improve how you're projecting and how people are reading you. So I know this has been a really long one, and it's probably a very triggering and aggressive one. And I invite, productive conversation in the comments below, in the chat room, in the Facebook group, on this. As far as like, I don't necessarily want to turn it into the Grindr page. There's one on Facebook, Grindr Tales, where people share like the messages, all the crazy messages that people post on Grindr, and it might be beneficial to you to actually be in that particular group, to actually look at the things that people post and they say, that are just really, really, big red flags for these people, and being like, oh, well, that's something that I do. Maybe I need to change something, and be open to change. And that's one of the things that is kind of the purpose of inviting this discussion, inviting and doing this video, is that really, I think people need to be open-minded to the idea that, you personally, as an individual, are probably not the problem, but there may be things that you are doing that are hindering your results. And it is in your best interest to really, really become more self-aware and think about the ways that you are presenting yourself that may or may not be benefiting you. And that's the whole point of this. I realize, and I apologize, that as I've been reflecting over the last couple of days, because I've got all this free time because I can't do much right now, that, if this community isn't taking off the way that I want it to, right? That people are not participating in the ways that I want them to. That people aren't sharing their experiences, they aren't sharing their thoughts, they're not being supportive of one another. And I think that a big part of that is my own conduct, the way that I have stepped in and shared my opinion on things that people have voiced in the past when they were trying to be supportive. And I think that there's been a lot of momentum that's been lost, especially as I have gone through periods where I haven't been able to devote much time to this because we are on the, hey, you're talking on a sofa stage and all that. And while I've tried to maintain things that are of value, the most valuable thing to me is that other people are sharing their voice, that other people are participating and trying to help build this community. And so I take it upon myself that my conduct has not always been the best for advocating for that. And I also take responsibility that sometimes when I've not agreed with people, I've not always responded in the most supportive way. And I think that that is something that I need to work on, and I am taking ownership of that. And so I think it's really, really important for us all to think about what our wants and needs are, and think about how we can help each other out to meet our own objectives. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope that nobody feels attacked by it. And I really hope that the conversation that comes from this is constructive and resonates with people that need to hear it. So thank you very much, guys. You have a good one.